Hello everyone. In the previous chapter, we discussed the internet structures of G-waves. Today, however, I'm going to shift gears a bit after reading a news story about a man in India who swallowed 40 razor blades over the course of 2 months. The comments under the article were largely calling him abnormal or perverted. However, I believe labeling him in such a way is misguided, and I like to delve into the possible causes of his behavior and explore potential therapeutic approaches. If you've been following the chapter from the beginning, you'll know that it's inappropriate to label this man as abnormal or perverted. Humans are biological beings shaped by both genetics and environmental influences. What we consider abnormal behavior often stems from the interaction of these factors, and the individual in question is not at fault. So let's start by analyzing the situation. When this man began swallowing razor blade, it means that a particular G wave, after competing with others in the G wave vector effect, ended up facilitating the behavior. The natural question is, what was the G wave that was battling against the one driving the blade swallowing behaviors? Clearly, it was a G wave connected to his self preservation instincts, something related to recognizing danger and maintaining safety. These types of safety related G waves are typically very strong and should prevent us from approaching hazardous situations. However, if there was another G wave, an unknown one, that was powerful enough to overcome the safety G waves, it could have led to the first instance of swallowing razor blades. If this man had a particular weak safety related G wave, it might have already engaged in risky, self injurious behavior long before swallowing the blades. This can be formed through interviews with the patient or their family. The later scenario, however, is quite rare, and even in such a case, an unknown G wave would have played a crucial role. Now, let's dig deeper. What is the nature of the unknown G wave that caused him to swallow razor blades? First, we need to look at his perception of the act of swallowing blades. Typically, swallowing blades would be classified as self harm. If the man viewed this as self harm, then the initial motive driving this behavior would be connected to some significant event in his life, and that event must have had a strong psychological impact on him. This G wave, rooted in that event, would have strengthened over time. For example, he might have been involved in a shameful event, which led to ongoing feelings of guilty and self blame. If this event or his understanding of self harm was closely linked to the act of swallowing blades, it could explain why one day he engaged in the act. Alternatively, if the man did not see blade swallowing as self harm but rather as a religious ritual or an act of bravery, The G-wave associated with this belief could have gradually strengthened, eventually leading to the first instance of swallowing razor blades. Once the man engaged in the act for the first time, it would form a first-hand G-wave related to the experience of blade swallowing. This first-hand G-wave would essentially reshape his experience of the event, similar to how a first-time lottery player's experience with winning or losing could reshape their understanding of gambling behavior. However, unlike the lottery, where the outcome can be framed as positive or negative feedback based on winning or losing, each instance of swallowing blades acts as positive feedback in itself, even though there are negative feedback elements such as the risk to life and health. This interplay of positive and negative feedback within the G waves would shape the frequency and intensity of subsequent blade swallowing behaviors. In the news story, the man underwent surgery to have the 40 razor blades removed. While the physical issue can be resolved, the underlying psychological problem remains. If you were a psychologist, how would you intervene? First, the most important approach would be to reshape the G waves that cause the blade swallowing behavior. You would need to strengthen the G waves related to safety and reverse the G wave that allows blade swallowing to win out in the G wave vector effect. In the beginning, when this shift hasn't been achieved, you could use safer substitutes for the razor blades, like wax or other harmless materials, and employ aversion therapy. But how would you reshape the G waves driving the blade swallowing behavior? Whether the cause is an event based G wave or a cognitive G wave. This could be done by guiding the patient through recollections of the event or through cognitive reshaping. A critical part of this is removing the patient's sense of responsibility related to the event, a process that requires patience, rationality, and authority from the psychologist. In cases where the G-wave are connected to beliefs, such as religious or spiritual notions, rational discussion of these beliefs would play an important role to strengthen the safety-related G-waves. You could introduce vivid, realistic imagery of death or the potential changes in a family's life after someone's death. This approach is part of cognitive therapy. On the other hand, the use of harmless substitutes for razor blades and aversion therapy would fall under behavioral therapy, something most people are already familiar with, so we won't go into further details here. So that's all the content today. See you next time. Bye bye.